This is my review of the much anticipated Luminar Neo Big Fall update. But is this the last update that we're ever going to see for Luminar Neo? Stick around till the end for some more information on that. But first, we've been promised a lot in this update and Skylum have not disappointed. So let's kick things off by looking at the new organizational tools in Neo. In our catalog, we have a beautifully clean minimalist view, which is great. But if we actually want to see the information that currently appears as I hover my mouse over each individual photo, we can come over to this section up here and change the medium to, well, different size thumbnails if we want. But this is the important bit. We have minimal and detailed. When I click detailed, we now have the file name, what type of file it is, and underneath as well, we now have the ability to add star ratings and favorite our photos as well. The application of star ratings is really easy. We can come down and actually physically click on the number of stars we want to assign to a photo, or perhaps even easier than that is just to keep our hand on the keyboard and we can go through the numbers and actually type 1 to 5 on individual photos to assign them the appropriate rating. Another option is to select multiple photos at once. You can do this by control clicking or option clicking on a Mac, or we can shift click to select multiple photos at once. And then when I press a key, let's say we want to assign a 3-star rating to all of these, you can see that all of those photos adopted that 3-star attribute just like that. If you want to favorite your images, you just click the heart icon and they're favorited. We also now have the ability to reject photos as well, just by pressing the little cross icon, and you can see that they become grayed out. Now, just by being able to assign star ratings, favorite and reject photos alone has really elevated our ability to organize our photos. It's been a long time coming, but finally we're able to do that. But these catalog improvements haven't stopped there. We've also got one of the headline acts, which is the ability to use AI to search our catalogs for photos that we're looking for. Now, don't worry, this is not being done in the cloud. This all runs locally off your machine. So if I'm looking for a particular thing, so let's say my daughter has come to me wanting to see photos of her with horses, I would just type horses, and then you can see the search has separated what it's found into 2 options here. One is just a basic search with the file name itself. However, this is the AI-driven search that has actually identified in our photos all of those images that actually contain horses. So let's say it was this photograph here that my daughter was after, where she was carrying the United States flag. It's now so much quicker for me to go through my photos and actually find that. I've only been using this tool for a short while, but already it's come in so handy for me. But I like to keep the developers at Skylum on their toes. So while they have delivered this really great tool, there's one more thing I would like to see added to it. So that photo was my daughter holding a USA flag. I would love to be able to get even more specific with our search, where I could say horse plus American flag, for example, and then it would give me just that 1 or 2 shots where I had my daughter in that situation, rather than the current more broad approach. But that's me being a bit of being super nitpicky, because so far I'm really impressed with this tool. Okay, the next really useful addition to the catalog is in the top left-hand corner here. You can see that we have currently all photos showing. So every photo that exists within our catalog is visible in this thumbnail view. However, what happens if I want to search by something specific? Well, we're now able to narrow down our search using a whole variety of different camera settings. So for example, if I wanted to upscale very small images from my old Nikon D70, I can set a filter by that ancient but lovely camera, and here you can see 3000 by 2000 pixels, 6 megapixel files, so I could then run an upscale on those to enlarge them. How about I want to clean up particularly noisy photos? Well, let's say I want to work on my Nikon D700. Okay, that's a bad choice because I've not got many photos in the catalog from that. Let's go for the D850. And currently we are searching by both of those cameras. It's added this D700 and the D850. And now we can say, and also those photos with a high ISO of 1600. Or if we decided that that was a bad call and we wanted to go to 3200, so even noisier file, I would click that and deselect the 1600. And if you're wondering why there's so many different ISO values in here, I do believe it is because I've loaded in a catalog from a whole year that also contains phone photos. And unlike our proper cameras, these pesky phones are a bit of a law unto themselves with things like ISO. But now I've quickly identified a series of photos that were all shot with ISO 3200. And if I zoom in, particularly in the shadows, you can see that they are indeed quite noisy. And I could run a batch edit preset to clean up that noise. And then to clear the filters, just come back to that drop down, and the bottom option here allows us to reset filters. So while Luminar Neo has always been a fantastic photo editor, great for all that creative stuff, it's always been severely lacking in organizational tools. So the fact that we've now got these implemented in Luminar Neo, it's been a long time coming, but I'm very, very happy to see them. If you don't have Luminar Neo yet, I've got a link to a sale in the description below, and also a discount code that you can apply to get a further saving as well. Now, before we move on to the creative stuff, there's something else that they've brought out with this new update, which hasn't been particularly lauded in their marketing. But for me, it's one of those things that's so important. Let me show you what it is. It is the addition of virtual copies. Check this out. If I right click, we now have the option create virtual copy, or you can press Control' with a photo selected to create that virtual copy. So I'm just going to create a virtual copy, and there we go. We now have two of the same photo. Ooh, great. What's the big deal, Anthony? Well, let me show you. Basically, if we want to apply a series of edits to this photo, I don't know, we want to put some accent AI in there and play with the color grading, but we're not sure if that's the direction we want to take it, or we want to create a softer look with a completely different color palette. Well, previously we couldn't do that unless we physically copied the original photo and then applied the different settings to it. Whereas now we only have one original photo, and now we have virtual copies that I've applied different processing to. This means that there's only ever one photo on your system. These virtual copies, they don't take any extra space to save them because they're virtual, and it allows you the freedom to play around with different processing styles, compare which ones you like. There really are a lot of benefits for having virtual copies, and another one could be if you're working on a particularly complex edit, you can actually incrementally save your work by creating virtual copies. Perfect the initial develop settings on the base photo, then create your virtual copy. You could start applying more creative effects. And then when you like the look of that, create another virtual copy that embeds all of that processing so far. And then you could apply some color grading. You're not sure if you like that color grading? Create another virtual copy and tweak it a little more. And if at any point you want to go back to a previous state of editing, you always have the ability to do that. Right, with those organizational tools covered, now it's time for the exciting stuff, the creative tools. Let's see what they've added for us in this update. Okay, here's a photo of my daughter posing in her dance leotard. The problem is, if I show you the original, her leotard was actually this very bright magenta. So it really clashed with what was going on around in the scene. So I really didn't like it. So as I hop back to the original, yeah, this one's just a virtual copy. See what I've done there? So this is the original. Let me show you what we can do. If I jump into the color section, you might think, well, can't we just change the hue of that specific color by opening the hue, saturation, luminance section and then grabbing the magenta and moving that color? Well, yeah, we can talk directly into that color, but unfortunately, we're limited to how far we can push that color. Same as if we grab the reds, that's not doing much for us either. So instead, we can shift the entire hue by grabbing this slider here. But as you can see, if I want to dial in that nice green that I created before, and then we want to drop the saturation and the vibrance just a little bit, so it's a little more toned down. Obviously, you can see that that has affected the entire photo. Here's our before and after. Helps if you actually click the right bit, Anthony. Here is our before, and here is our after, before and after. That's no good. So what options have we got? Well, previously, we might have to come in and brush this in individually, or we could come in and use the object selection, which is a pretty good tool. But if I click that, you can see that it also has picked up a little bit of a neck and the other strap here. So if I come out of that, you can see that, well, it's done a pretty good job, but it's certainly not perfect, and we'd still need to come in and refine that. So our other option is now the color masking. So let me come to the mask actions, and we're just going to clear that mask so we can start again. Now you can see that we have this color masking option here. Now I'm going to zoom in, and all we need to do is pick on the color that we want to mask. So I'm going to select this here, and it's unfortunate that the color that represents the mask is actually a reddy color, but you can see if I select other areas in the photo, what that color masking is actually doing for us. And we also have a range slider so that we can increase the range to select more similar colors, or reduce the range so we can be more specific. The default is 50, so I'm just going to set it back around there. And now I'm going to click on her top. If I come out of the masking itself, we'll see the effect that it's created. And you can see that it is not perfect at the moment. Reason being, we didn't increase the range far enough to encapsulate all of these different color variations. So no problem. If you aren't happy with your color mask, but you want to add to it, just come in with the same tool again and click somewhere else to increase that color mask. So now if I come out, we've collected a little bit more, and you can just keep doing that if you want to add to your selection. So now I've selected this little area down here as well. You get the idea, so I don't need to keep going with that, but I will just show you this. If you get other areas like on the side of her face here that obviously share the same hue, what you can do is come in with the brush and just erase that effect from that area, and that will just return to normal. And if I come down to my other virtual copy and switch to that, you can see that this is what I was able to do just by selecting those other extra areas. So with the color masking tool, we've taken it from this to this, before and after. Now the next tool that we're going to look at is the one that I was most excited about. It's the color transfer tool. The idea behind it is that if you have imagery that you particularly like because of the color palette, might be a photo, might be a still from a movie, we can borrow that color palette and introduce it into our own work. Let me show you how that works, and we'll see whether it's any good or not. As I open up the behind the scenes of this place, which you may recognize if you're into movies, this is Hobbiton. And one thing that's been added to Luminar Neo that I haven't actually mentioned as I flick through these is this film strip at the bottom, which is still visible if we move into the editing section here, so you can still quickly flick between your photos. So while we're on this photo of, let's go with the mill, let's see if we can't give this a different look based on the color grade of a different film. So if we come into the creative section, we now have color transfer. So to use the color transfer tool, it's really easy. We have this reference selection, which allows you to specify an image that you want to borrow the color from. The first 5 here actually ship with Luminar Neo. The others are ones that I've added in. So it's really easy to add your own imagery. You click the plus icon and then come over to where your photos are. So I've got a load of screenshots from films where I really love the color grade. So we've got Blade Runner here, we've got Mad Max, Fury Road, Sin City, The Godfather, and The Life of Pi as well. So let's say that we want to borrow a color grade from The Life of Pi and put it onto our Hobbiton image. We just click open, and then the AI is going to go to work applying the color transfer. And because the AI is looking for individual elements in our photo, matching up the colors between them, things like that, there's a lot going on behind the scenes. It's more computationally intensive than just applying a lookup table. And also the other difference between a LUT and what we're doing here is a LUT, you're going in blind, you're just going off a name and hoping that it looks good. Whereas with color transfer, we're actually specifying an image. So you see the colors that you want to put onto your photo, and that's what Luminar is using. So here you can see if I toggle the eyeball for the before and release for the after, we have the Life of Pi color grade injected into our photo with these default amounts. I will show you how these work as well, because they can have quite a dramatic effect. But let's choose a different color grade to see how that affects the photo. As you can see, a very different result. Now, straight out of the box for this particular photo, I don't really like how these settings are working for us. So it's a good opportunity to work through these and show you what they do. I am going to push the amount all the way to 100, very aggressive, but it's going to be very clear to us to see exactly what's going on. So the first slider, color intensity, as you can imagine, says how much of the new color we're introducing. But color is not only made up of a hue, but also the luminosity. So if I bring the luminosity all the way down, you'll see that the image more closely resembles our initial photo as I toggle between the two. So you want to be careful having this luminosity intensity set too high, otherwise things can look a bit weird. The two bottom sliders refer to smoothing. So if I bring those all the way down, we're going to have more abrupt transition between the colors and the way they bleed out into the scene. So as you can see, the transition between the orange and the cyan, it's all very abrupt. So those transition smoothing sliders help to just diffuse that look, and the same with the color smoothing as well. Now this color transfer has already clearly picked up the blue from the Mad Max still and applied that to the sky. However, if you want to get even more specific, you can tell the AI to match similar objects' colors. So for example, it would take the color from a car in your reference image and apply it to a car in the target image that you're working on. So let's have a little toggle of the before and the after of that color transfer with the amount set to 100. It's far too much, obviously. Let's bring that down and see whether we can't just get a nice little 50-50 split. Here's our before and here's our after. Let's have a look at another example. Here's a photo shoot featuring a different franchise. You may recognize it. Let's have a look at color grading this stormtrooper here, who is currently walking along planet, well, a beach local to me actually. Okay, let's go into the color transfer tool, come to reference selection, and this time let's use one that's already loaded in. This is an image from the Matrix, and you can see with the default settings here, I think this has actually given us a much better result straight out of the box than the one on the Hobbiton movie set. Currently I'm finding this tool a little bit hit and miss, but one thing is for sure, it's a lot of fun to play around with. So before we leave this video, let's just do one more example. Okay, Mr. Stormtrooper, what else have you got for us? How about we put a different color grade on that one? So color transfer, reference selection, and what if we wanted to go for a completely black and white one? Sin City had some really interesting color grading going on. So let's see if we can't borrow from that and apply it onto our Stormtrooper photo. The applying color transfer is going to work. And as I push the amount all the way to 100, here's a great example of what doesn't work. Here was our original, and this is with the Sin City grading applied. Really doesn't work. Let's try something else. Let's try Cider Brown. This is one that actually ships with the update. Let's see what it does for us. I don't really love it. What about this one from Blade Runner? Okay, I think the result that we got here, borrowing that color grade from Blade Runner, applying it to our Stormtrooper photo, it really epitomizes the potential flaws of using this tool at the moment. The Blade Runner photo has a very distinctive orange light in it, and the rest of the photo is a kind of muted blue gunmetal grey. And it's interesting to see how the tool has thought with its AI that those colours should be applied to this photo. Because at the moment I haven't been able to achieve consistently predictable results with this tool, for now I think I'm going to be using predominantly LUTs for colour grading my work, but this is so much fun to play around with that I'm sure I will just be experimenting with it along the way. Now, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention the final part of the update, which probably deserves a video all on its own. So I'm just going to briefly mention the fact that they have improved all of the generative tools. So that's Gen Swap, Gen Raise, and Gen Expand that have all had improvements made to them. Up until now, I've kind of steered clear of those generative tools because the results were so bad, so unpredictable, but they have been improved. So that's great news for people who enjoy using those tools. If you follow my channel, you probably won't have missed the fact that Skylum have released a new photo editor called Apathy. Now, Apathy has a very specific purpose. It is designed as a high-end portrait editor. That is not what Neo is. Luminar Neo is a fantastic broad scope photo editor, which probably excels most for landscape editing. I got an interesting comment on one of the Apathy videos the other day from someone concerned that Skylum were going to be ditching Luminar Neo. They're pivoting to another new bit of software just as a greedy money grab, and Luminar Neo was going to be forgotten about. So I just want to assure everybody that that is not the case. Couldn't be further from the truth. What Skylum have actually done is created a whole separate team dedicated to the development of Apathy and making sure that they can elevate that portrait editing software to the best level it can be, while the team that is responsible for Luminar Neo are going to continue bringing us great updates like this. So rest assured, Luminar Neo is going to continue to go from strength to strength. So if you don't have Luminar Neo yet and you like the look of it from this demo I've shown today, there is a discount link in the description below. Help yourself to that. Those of you who have not seen anything about Apathy yet and you're interested in portrait editing, then you might want to go and check out that video right there. I hope you enjoy this update for Luminar Neo. I think it's a really good one. Let me know what you think in the comments. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye for now.